UFC 321 taught us one thing and one thing only. Well, actually, a couple things. But the main thing right now is heavyweight MMA in 2025, even at the pinnacle of our standards, is supposed to be at a bare minimum. We got nothing but absolute garbage out of UFC 321's heavyweight division, and a lot more things to talk about at UFC 321. A pretty subpar event throughout the entirety of it. This will be kind of like a little recap for the first episode of, welcome, by the way, to the matchup with mmadbm. You will be seeing this every single day, every single morning, or depending on where you live. If you're in the UK, in Europe, kind of midday for you guys. But we will be posting every single day. First episode right here. This one will be more of a recap. Every day you'll kind of get different segments. You'll kind of get different topics being covered. But we have a lot to talk about with UFC 321 and what just happened at that card, because that was legitimately stupid. What we had to watch in UFC 321 was one of the more abysmal showcasings of heavyweight MMA, and a couple different instances when it came to refereeing and some big issues that we have in MMA. Also, interpretation of fights. We need to break down this Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane fight that we had for 4 minutes or however much it lasted. We have the Mackenzie Dern versus Virna Jandiroba fight. Some of the scorecards that some fans had thought it was a little concerning. We also have the Volkov versus Almeida robbery. We have a lot to talk about for UFC 321. So again, welcome to the matchup. This is the matchup with mmadbm, your daily best source for MMA and the most authentic breakdowns every single day on all things MMA and all the hottest topics in the sport revolving around the UFC, MMA, and sometimes even the top things in combat sports. But let's go over what we've got right now with Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane, the hottest topic right now that we have revolved around. And of course, we will get into Jon Jones later. You know how that goes. Tom Aspinall comes in and he looks very, and I think a lot of people are completely ignoring the fact that Tom Aspinall comes into this fight with not fighting with over a year and a half. The last time he fought was against Curtis Blades. That fight lasted a minute or two. The guy has not had octagon experience much in his career, let alone at all within this last year and a half. That's important for guys to stay consistent, especially in heavyweight now, where you have a stylistic matchup for Tom Aspinall that we've been waiting on for a while. And a lot of people completely ignoring that, by the way, dismissing Ciryl Gane. I went on record saying I want Ciryl Gane to win. I wanted Ciryl Gane to win over and over and over again. If you do not follow me on TikTok, I posted on my story, posted on the TikTok. Overall, I made a couple videos talking about wanting Ciryl Gane to win because of the chaos that would have come out of it had he won. How Jon Jones would have reacted. How the entire MMA fan base would be losing their minds. Where the guy that everybody thought was getting ducked by Jon Jones loses to the guy that Jon Jones completely decimated. And then you know how it's going to go from there. I personally did think that Aspinall was going to knock him out. I personally thought that Aspinall was going to run through him. But again, did fail to consider, and now I think a lot of people are failing to consider right after this, that Tom Aspinall was coming in very, very rusty, and he was fighting a guy who kept his distance. Ciryl Gane made it a point, and I think he made it pretty arrogantly in a good way for him in this fight, to where he was backpedaling a little bit and kind of pleading Aspinall to come in, and the jab was working for Ciryl Gane. Now, a lot of people completely dismissing Tom Aspinall in regards to Jon Jones. A lot of people completely disregarding Tom Aspinall as a top-end guy now. And I think it was a very bad night for Tom Aspinall, more than it was for anybody else. I think it was a much worse night for Tom Aspinall than we saw for Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane actually looks very good. I think Ciryl Gane's actually getting a lot of praise. Let me take you guys back to Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad 1, where Leon Edwards comes back from a long layoff. A little bit different because Edwards is the one that's coming off the layoff. But Leon Edwards comes back, looks like he's doing very well against Bilal Muhammad, and then pokes him in the eye. And then Bilal Muhammad, all of a sudden, everybody forgets about him, right? A little bit different situation because this is for the title right now. You go back to when they actually fought. They fought in a complete fight, and Bilal Muhammad won that fight relatively handedly, 3-2. You cannot judge these fights based off of 4 minutes that occurred. You cannot judge these fights based off of Bilal Muhammad coming in on short notice against Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards was rusty. Bilal Muhammad was coming on a very short notice. It was the biggest step up in his career. Then you go on to Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall hasn't fought in a year and a half. A year and a half Tom Aspinall has not fought in. We do not disregard a year and a half of Tom Aspinall not fighting. And he's fighting a guy who's going to give him stylistically the toughest matchup he's had. Name a striker that Tom Aspinall has had that moves like Cyril Gane does. Name a striker that Tom Aspinall has fought that stays on the outside. And it's not like Tom Aspinall is a proactive wrestler. Now, did Tom Aspinall try to shoot on Cyril Gane? Yes. Did Cyril Gane use an eye poke to also defend that? 100%. We've seen it. Tom Aspinall did what he could against Cyril Gane early, and I think he did kind of reach too much out of range. Let's talk about that fight, for example. Aspinall typically looks very tentative in his fights early on. Looks very nervous, looks very shaky, looks very antsy. Looks like he's ready to throw that right hand. He really always looks like he's ready to let go of that right hand. And that's his combination. It's 1-2 down the pipe. Guy goes down, he finishes the fight typically. Cyril Gane didn't this time. Aspinall actually landed that 1-2 every now and then, but he was a little bit out of range. A lot of the time, actually, sometimes kind of telegraphing a right hand from way too far out of range. Because Cyril Gane kept circling. Cyril Gane kept moving backwards. Tom Aspinall did not like having to not chase him, but cut off the cage and try to track down Cyril Gane. And keep in mind, a guy who's been trying to fight for a year and a half. He's been trying and begging to fight, but he could not take another fight because he was the interim champion of the world, fighting against the unwillingness of the champion in Jon Jones to fight him. What is he going to do? He defended the interim title, and do you want him to just keep going there and defending the interim title? No, you do not want him to do that. We have Tom Aspinall coming in, a guy who finishes everybody within 2 minutes. I mean, Sergey Pavlovich, Alexander Volkov, he's decimated the top of the division. These are guys who, I mean, Volkov, for example, we saw earlier, and we'll talk about that. But we saw Volkov against Cyril Gane, and we saw Cyril Gane the first time they fought win pretty handily in a 5-rounder. Just recently, we just saw Cyril Gane rob Volkov blind, and now we're here. And now we're here with Cyril Gane looks great, and Tom Aspinall was getting pieced up, and he quit. Horrible deduction of this. Tom Aspinall looked quick. Tom Aspinall looked decent, but he looked a little frustrated. He looked a little bit antsy. And I think Cyril Gane played that very, very well. He kept his distance. He used the jab when Tom Aspinall was entering in from way too far out. When Aspinall landed, Gane did land off the break. I think Gane did very well overall in that first round as he started off. But these guys take time to build up. That fight was getting started. The significant strike count between the two was 27-30 in favor of Gane. Gane was not decimating Aspinall. We expected Tom Aspinall to run through Cyril Gane, completely run through him. And the fact that he didn't, and also the fact that Cyril Gane made it relatively competitive. No matter what, people are completely dismissing Tom Aspinall. Let me say one thing. I think Tom Aspinall still runs through Cyril Gane the next time they fight when they book it. I also think that Tom Aspinall still runs through this current version of Jon Jones, especially the one that we saw against Stipe Miocic. I think everybody is way too quick to jump on Tom Aspinall right now because of what just happened, because of it looking a little competitive early, and the fact that Jon Jones did take down Cyril Gane. I think a lot of it had to do with the bright lights. I think Cyril Gane looked horrible on the mat. I think Cyril Gane made stupid mistake after stupid mistake against a guy who, yes, Jon Jones' pressure is insane, but at the same time, you have the lights put on you by Cyril Gane, and it was the biggest fight that he's had in his career, and it was a huge fight. I think the Francis Ngannou fight was more personal for him than it was anything big lights, and he still lost that one. This is a whole different situation for Aspinall, and I feel like Aspinall had all the pressure in the world on him with all the rust in the world, and considering his fight style, a guy who always, and I mean always, finishes his opponents in under 2 minutes, starts getting extended, starts getting frustrated in there, as we saw against Cyril Gane, where he was out of range, where Gane was moving around. Aspinall did not like it. He was getting frustrated. We saw him get frustrated in the fight. If you did not notice Aspinall getting frustrated, you're missing the biggest part of this fight. But I digress. Cyril Gane obviously eye pokes Tom Aspinall. Not necessarily the greatest look in the world. It sucks. It sucked. Honestly, that event wasn't the greatest overall. Honestly, the Mackenzie Dern versus Jandiroba fight wasn't that bad considering how bad a lot of the other fights were. I think the Umar Nurmagomedov fight was actually relatively entertaining. Really good scrambles. I like the Dern versus Jandiroba fight more. I think Mackenzie Dern versus Jandiroba was actually pretty entertaining. I think we saw some really good exchanges, some really high-octane stuff. But yeah, let's get back. Let's stick to the Tom Aspinall topic for a moment because we do need to talk about Jon Jones. We do need to talk about what would be next for the heavyweight division. Dana White himself said that he believed that Cyril Gane was looking good. Kind of seemed like Dana White was a little bit hinting towards Aspinall not wanting to be there a little bit more than Aspinall not being able to be there. That's another thing that we're starting to think about right now. A lot of people are starting to talk about. I think that's wild. I think it's insane to have anybody say that Tom Aspinall quit. The eye gouge was disgusting. And now, not to blame Cyril Gane. I mean, to be fair, he did it multiple times, and it was the parry, and he's trying to push off, and he's trying to keep him at bay, and he's trying to make sure Aspinall doesn't get close. I don't mind it for a fighter, but I do mind it for a referee to not hold the standard of taking a point away when a foul is committed multiple times. I think there are certain fouls that need to be a point taken away no matter what. First of all, if a fighter's fighting like this, Peter Yan fights like that with a parry. Jon Jones fought like that repeatedly, but his intention is to quite literally threaten an eye poke. Cyril Gane does it repeatedly over and over again. If a fighter is fighting with their hand parried out, they know the risks of them potentially eye poking an opponent. At that point, that's an immediate point deduction. You are taking that risk, and if they get eye poked, you need to be reprimanded for that. I don't understand how the lack of commitment of these referees to stick to the rule book is insane, to stick to the guidelines, to stick to penalizing fighters who are breaking the rules over and over and over again. We watched it in this same card, to go away a little bit from the Aspinall versus Cyril Gane fight. We watched the Chris Barnett versus Hamdi Abdul Wahab fight. Chris Barnett grabbed the cage. Chris Barnett grabbed the gloves of Hamdi Abdul Wahab. Horrible, horrible fouls. Nonetheless, I think those are both intentional fouls. Immediately, in my opinion, both of those should be points taken away. The moment a fighter intentionally cheats, or the moment a fighter does something where you cannot just say they did it accidentally, that's a point. You grab the cage, that's a point. You grab a fighter's glove, you stick your finger in the glove, that is a point. It is an illegal foul they are intentionally doing. There is no way to go around whether or not it's intentional. If you want to say it's instinctual to grab the cage, that's fine. Nonetheless, in my opinion, I think that should be a point taken away. And you don't have to stop the fight to take a point away. I don't understand what's this newfound thing that MMA fans are completely lost about, or the MMA referees especially are completely lost about. They don't need to stop a fight to take a point away. It's happened multiple times throughout several other fights. I don't know why this is a newfound thing that we're saying we can't take points away. Hamdi Abdul Wahab elbows Chris Barnett in the back of the head one time. Horrible elbow. I think it's definitely something he should have lost a point on, and he did lose a point on it. Azat Maksum, this is really good refereeing. Grabbed the cage once. Nothing. Mark Goddard, maybe the most inconsistent referee in the world. He was the one that was the referee on the Hamdi Abdul Wahab versus Chris Barnett fight. Back to the Tom Aspinall one. Cyril Gane should have lost the point. And I think he was going to lose a point no matter what, because he had done it multiple times. I don't think Jason Herzog even caught on to it the first time, but never know, because I don't think he gave a warning out, but I might have been missing it. What's next for these guys right now? I think Aspinall versus Cyril Gane has to get booked. I feel like there doesn't really need that much time. I don't necessarily believe that Cyril Gane needs that much time to prepare again. I don't think Aspinall needs that much time. It's going to suck that both of them are going to have to go back and weigh in. I don't think they need to cut. It is heavyweight. Just got to repair Aspinall's eye, and that's about it. Maybe Gane's dealing with an injury. We have to find that stuff out. But at the end of the day, what we're looking for is the best heavyweight fight we can put on. Alexander Volkov beat Jailton Almeida. First of all, robbery, straight up theft. And we're going to jump into that before we jump into the other fights around it, because that's revolved around the main event as well. It's about what's next for this main event. How active can these guys be? Jailton Almeida won that fight. He won the lay. He won the lay. Whatever you want to call that. He won it. He did nothing. Dana White said that he was happy with the decision because you cannot win a fight by just laying on a person. With all due respect, I'm happy. I'm happy with the robbery. I am happy with the robbery, and I'm not. I lose it when the wrong fighter wins. I lose it. Jailton Almeida made a fool out of himself more than you could have possibly imagined him to make a fool out of himself. He had dominant position after dominant position after dominant position. And what did Jailton Almeida do? He sunk his head into Volkov's stomach every single time he was in guard. There were free passes of the guard several times over and over and over again, and he chose not to pass. He chose not to exert energy, because when Jailton Almeida deals with any sort of adversity in heavyweight, he either folds or he gets you down and he prays to the Lord that nothing happens. And that's exactly what was happening for 11 of the 15 minutes in that fight. Now, with what Dana White said, that you can't just, sit on somebody and win a fight. I also would believe that it's a little bit more impressive to sit on somebody in a fight than it is to be sat on for a whole fight. We can praise Volkov for the effort that he tried to make of actually making a fight out of this thing and giving us the most entertaining portion of the fight of him in round one reversing the position that Jalton, I don't even know how he got reversed in a half guard that badly. And then he landed a couple shots on Jalton, some elbows, and it was pretty interesting. We were actually getting engaged into the fight. What did Volkov do in rounds 2 and 3? What reason did Volkov give you to give him rounds 2 or 3? I mean, 2 judges gave him round 3. Why? We're rewarding effort. We're not even effort. We're rewarding an attempted effort. We're rewarding a guy who we believe was trying a little bit more in the fight to put damage out. That we see, okay, at least he's trying to fight. That doesn't do anything. You cannot just reward a fighter a victory because they wanted to fight in a better style for the fans or for entertainment or for ethical MMA or whatever it is you want to break it down as. It's you cannot do that. We cannot start shifting to these things for no reason just because we want to decide on. No, that's not how you judge MMA. That's not how you play on with this sport and move forward. Jailton Almeida should have won this fight, but he did not deserve to fight for a title after that. I don't think Alexander Volkov does, but now we're playing this game where Volkov got robbed by Gane, so we're going to screw Jailton Almeida over. It's like a one-for-one thing. No, it's not a one-for-one thing, because Jailton Almeida didn't win by robbery. It was Cyril Gane that won by robbery. Yes, Volkov was the one that got screwed, but you don't screw somebody else in return. Now, am I personally happy for Jailton Almeida to get screwed? 100%. Why? Because not as a person, individually, it sucks for him, feel bad for him. You lost half your check and you did win the fight. He genuinely wanted to wet blanket. And I scarcely ever say that about fighters because a lot of MMA fans fail to start seeing when fighters are trying to pass guard. And honestly, like Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis, that's a situation where it's not Chimaev's fault the fight got boring. It's Dricus du Plessis' fault the fight got boring because Dricus du Plessis did everything in his power to maintain defensive position, to maintain that nothing happens to him. And he did not take risks. And he held on to defensive positions against Chimaev, mitigating anything Chimaev could do. That is a defensive fighter hindering an offensive grappler's ability to do anything in that situation. This was not that. Volkov wasn't doing that. Jailton Almeida literally had opportunity to do everything that we could have asked from him to do on top, and he chose not to. And he lost the fight because of that. Tough luck. It really is tough luck. At that point, you're your own worst enemy. Chito Vera keeps losing these decisions, loses split decisions. At what point do you realize that you're the problem? At what point do you realize that you constantly do the same thing over and over and over again, and you put yourself in these positions where you're about to lose half your check because you don't want to go ahead and put volume out in the first round if you're Chito Vera? These are the situations they put themselves in. Jailton Almeida just did it to himself right there. We've seen him do it before. I don't think Volkov gets the next title fight. I don't see why he would. Alex Pereira is pushing for a heavyweight shot. But Alex Pereira doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall or Cyril Gane. Alex Pereira wants to fight Jon Jones. Jon Jones just basically accepted publicly Alex Pereira's offer to fight. And I think this fight becomes a lot more likely now that we have Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gane having to fight again. The interest, the hype behind both of these guys, unless there's a big finish in the rematch. You want to watch either of them fight at the White House? Or would you rather watch Alex Pereira versus Jon Jones? What sells at that point? Think about the company that owns the UFC, TKO. They're very star-driven. If you know them in the WWE, they're very, very star-driven. They want the biggest stars out there in the biggest events they could possibly put out. They have Islam Makhachev in Madison Square Garden right now. That's what they're trying to push. They do that in the WWE, and they're letting the stars drive the show in the WWE the same way they're doing it in the UFC. That's why promotion in the UFC has completely gone to a dull. They are solely relying on these big stars to lift them. And the star power in the UFC is being lifted more and more and more. It is. With Ilia Topuria, with Islam Makhachev, with Khamzat Chimaev, despite that DDP fight, with Alex Pereira. It is being elevated compared to what it was a couple years ago. I think the star power here is bigger than we had in between that. Volkanovski's right there too. Obviously, Volkanovski lost to Topuria and Makhachev, but I think he's still relatively there. I think Alex Pereira versus Jon Jones is a lot more likely now for the White House, but it just depends on this timing that we get of when this heavyweight title gets in this rematch. How Volkov is going to look. Volkov is going to be gifted a title shot eventually. He's not fighting another contender. There's no reason the UFC is going to do that to him. It's a matter of how. It's a matter of when. And it's a matter of when this rematch occurs. Alex Pereira, in my opinion, is no longer fighting Tom Aspinall or Ciryl Gane. I thought that was the fight to make. I do not believe that's going to happen whatsoever. I think Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall is off the book completely. I don't see that fight ever happening. Even if Aspinall goes out there and starches Ciryl Gane in the first round, I don't see it happening. Honestly, it makes this fight a lot more entertaining, in my opinion. I think Ciryl Gane versus Tom Aspinall's rematch is going to be just as entertaining, if not even more hyped up than this next one. Now that I'm thinking about it, than the past one, because we saw Ciryl Gane look good. We saw Tom Aspinall struggle. Then we saw a lot of frustration after the eye poke. We saw Aspinall having to leave the ring, or the octagon. I personally think it's going to be a very interesting fight. I personally think we're going to get the Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane rematch. Volkov is going to wait until the winner of that fights Alexander Volkov, and then we're going to have Alex Pereira versus Jon Jones at the White House. I think it's absurd to think about it, and then I see that happen. And now I think it's more and more likely. Jon Jones didn't really say anything about the fight, by the way. All Jon Jones did was change his profile picture to a duck with an eye patch. Straight troll, straight rage bait, completely trolling the life out of Tom Aspinall. And I mean, hey, he got to imagine if Ciryl Gane won. Imagine if Ciryl Gane won, what we would have gotten out of Jon Jones. Him being able to do that, I think it's hilarious. Especially just that's witty. It's witty. You don't really get smart out of Jon Jones. You got it. Anyways, moving forward, Mackenzie Dern versus Virna Jandiroba, pretty decent overall. I think the fight was relatively entertaining. I thought Dern won 4 rounds. A little confused as to how a lot of people had Virna Jandiroba. I think some people had Virna Jandiroba winning the fight. I don't understand what you were looking at. Virna Jandiroba, every single time she took down Mackenzie Dern, was the least effective person on the mat, even when on top of Dern. Dern was proactive. The elbows, the constant shots to Virna, and Virna wasn't really landing as much when she was on top of Mackenzie Dern. Dern on the feet and Virna on the feet. Virna landed a good amount. I think Dern landed the better shots overall almost every single round. I think Dern outstruck her in almost every single round as well. I think maybe tied in round 2. Mackenzie Dern's a UFC champion. Strawweight used to be the best division in women's MMA, and now it is plummeting miserably. Flyweight right now, I think, stands out big time. I think the best women's flyweight in the world is not even in the UFC. She's in the PFL, and it's always, a big asterisk to say anything like that. But I think Dakota Ducheva is definitely one to put out there. So she's also fighting literally nobody. So when she comes to the UFC, how's it going to look, right? Hashtag custom. Bantamweight's cooked. Strawweight's cooked. We have flyweight going in right now. But Mackenzie Dern is UFC champion, and I think she earned it. I actually think it was a very good performance from her. I think she looked decent on the feet overall, especially early on. I think the jab was fantastic. Whatever. I don't know what's next for strawweight. I said that before the fight started. I don't know, before the fight happened. I legitimately do not know what they're going to do next for strawweight moving forward. Yeah, we talked about Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Volkov. Umar Nurmagomedov, I feel like a lot of people are just ripping into for no reason. Umar Nurmagomedov had a fantastic performance against Mario Bautista. Bautista had a really good counter early on in the grappling with the ankle lock. It's like something with the ankle, and then it goes for a toe hold a little bit at the same time with it. And Umar had to scramble proactively, like big time. Really, really explosive scrambles, and it was starting to hurt him. And it was definitely something that Mario was putting in deep. Umar got out of it. So Umar got threatened a little bit on the mat. And then he dominated the rest of the first round. So a little bit of adversity, fought through it, fought through any sort of pain, got out of it. Scrambles were fantastic by Umar Nurmagomedov that nobody is really giving him credit for scrambling out against. Mario Bautista is a very good grappler, very high-level grappler. Umar looked fantastic in round 1. Round 2, he gets caught with this knee from Mario Bautista. Literally every other moment of the round, he looked better than Mario Bautista. On the feet, he looked better than Mario Bautista in this fight as well. I think Umar was actually very reluctant to use his hands in this fight, and he had the better jab. He had the better two. Every single time Mario Bautista threw his right hand, it was slow, it was telegraphed, and every single time he started throwing it later in the fight, Umar would land a left counter, and it would land very, very beautifully. I do not understand why Umar didn't stick to that a little bit more. But he was the much better grappler. He was the much better jiu-jitsu player, and I think the lack of confidence in his hands at that time led to him dealing with some of the adversity on the feet, especially with that knee. And then in the third round, he again just dominated Mario Bautista. I think a lot of people are kind of ignoring how good of a performance that was from Umar because he dealt with a little bit of adversity. Umar Nurmagomedov, in his biggest step up in his career at 28 years old, won 2 rounds off of Merab Dvalishvili with a broken hand. Then fought competitively in round 3 and took down Merab Dvalishvili in round 3. And then in round 5, he goes on and competes pretty well against Merab in round 5. When people are saying he was gassed, he's done, he's slowing down, and then Merab lands a big right hand and kind of separates a little bit in round 5. He fought a competitive fight against Merab. He took 2 rounds off of Merab in the beginning of the fight. And he fought competitively down the wire. That's something we are not considering with Umar. He is going to get better. I think Merab is fantastic. I think we are watching Merab get better and better and better. I think we're also seeing that Merab is 34 years old, turning 35 years old. No matter how good Merab is getting, no matter how much better Merab is getting, statistically, you cannot support that Merab Dvalishvili is going to be getting better exponentially. More than Umar Nurmagomedov is going to be, especially considering their ages. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. Now, do I think Umar Nurmagomedov can take Merab Dvalishvili down and keep him down? No. Do I think Umar can take Merab down and hold him down there and get positions on him, take his back like he did Mario? No. No. Do I think Umar could win some moments on the feet? Yes, I think like he did in round 1 and round 2 of their first fight with Merab, where he also stunned Merab in that fight. The Peter Yan fight with Umar is starting to circulate a little bit more with me, but I'm not entirely certain on it yet. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting situation for him. One thing we also have to cover, by the way, and I just want to cover it a little bit because it's not relevant to the pinnacle of this card. I mean, we could talk about like Asmat Mirzakhanov knocking out Rakic with a jab. Mirzakhanov definitely going to be fighting for a number 1 contender shot. Called for it. Fantastic call out. But we have a heavyweight, as we're talking about heavyweight, because heavyweight is definitely right now what we need to narrow it on. We have a heavyweight who not only is being disrespected with the matchmaking, by the way, he was getting some more respect when he got when they matched him up with his last fight, but this fight he was booked against Mo Usman. Mo Usman pulled out. They gave him Louis Sutherland. The Mo Usman fight was as disrespectful of an offer as it gets. Walter Walker has 4 straight first-round heel hooks. The capability to be able to attach to that heel hook and get the grip he gets on it, by the way, all in the first round. Never been done before. I think he broke the record with the 3. He's extended it with the 4. Heavyweight is in the mud. And I mean, it's as miserable as it gets. We just watched it in the main card with 2 of those 5 fights being heavyweights. Who is the most exciting heavyweight right now? I don't care if he's good or not. Who's the most exciting heavyweight right now in the UFC? It's Walter Walker. There's nothing that's stopping the UFC from giving him a top-end fight. A top-end fight. What's stopping him? Give him Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida versus Walter Walker. Walter Walker beats him, give him a title shot. After Volkov. Seriously. I'm being dead serious. Because why not? What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? The guy is taking people's knees repeatedly with this heel hook. Just completely shattering everybody's ligaments. 4 straight first round. I mean, 4 minutes and 56 seconds against Junior Taffer right at the end of round 1. 1 minute and 17 seconds into the Dontel Mays fight. 54 seconds into the Kennedy and Zetriku fight. It's literally getting less and less against the better level competition. And he faces Louis Sutherland. I think it took like a minute or two or something like that. I didn't really update it on the on Tapology from when I took the picture, but how do you just diminish it? How do you just diminish it? This is the most exciting heavyweight we have in the world. Literally in the world. I think he's more exciting right now, especially what we just got with the main event. When you put Walter Walker on a fight, everybody is starting to think. I mean, when I was live during this entire card, I had over 112,000 people view the live stream. Very good live stream overall for a card that was pretty garbage, to be honest. We had Walter Walker conversations of being able to do that heel hook against Tom Aspinall. People believe it. He's done it 4 times in a row in the first round. No bell has been rung in a Walter Walker fight in 4 straight fights without a heel being snatched. We need to start evaluating this. We need to start pushing it a little bit more with the UFC. The UFC needs to actually capitalize on these. And it's not like he's some like 22, 23-year-old prospect. He's not a Tiba Gaultier. You're not shoving a Tiba Gaultier down into the middle of the middleweight rankings right now and trying to give him a big fight to elevate him. No, these are prospects that you need to have win. Walter Walker is running through heavyweight. Heavyweight is as literally liquidated as it gets. It's so narrow and thin. And that's being generous. What is there at heavyweight for you to look forward to right now that's competitive for the top of the division? You had Daniel Cormier and Tom Aspinall on the side with a camera view of DC basically ripping on the entire heavyweight division, saying it's a load of garbage. And Tom Aspinall agreeing. And DC saying that, look, all the money you're about to make, like, you're about to be this great. Like, DC is literally taking a complete dump on the company's heavyweight division that he works for. Put Walter Walker in there against Jailton Almeida. Not Curtis Blades, because Curtis Blades deserves a better fight. I don't know who, but Curtis Blades deserves a better fight. He just took on Kania for no reason, and he won the fight. So I don't believe he won, but nonetheless, yeah, you have to go with Walter Walker there. Walter Walker, Jailton Almeida, the fight to make. Moving on to the heavyweight, Alexander Volkov versus the winner of the rematch for Aspinall versus Cyril Gane. What else we got? Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira. I really like, you got 2 retired guys that you could put at the top that you're still going to get an entertaining stylistic matchup out of. Yes, Jon Jones is slow. Yes, Jon Jones looks horrible on the feet. Yes, Jon Jones is a bear when it gets to the mat. Yes, Alex Pereira, in my opinion, is rendered useless on the mat. But he's stupidly dangerous on the feet. I think Jones gets him down and completely decimates him. But I also think you're giving Alex Pereira an opportunity to become the greatest of all time. Or at least potentially up there. Moral of the story, heavyweight's kind of in a dump right now. I feel like this is the worst possible scenario for the UFC having to remake this fight, especially if it takes a while. Especially with December already booked. Especially with November already booked. Especially considering it's not going to be on a pay-per-view in November or December or probably even January, because Ilia Topuria is going to be headlining January, and you're not putting anybody over Ilia Topuria. You're just not. He is the biggest star in the UFC. Nobody's being put over Ilia Topuria. Especially, by the way, especially if Ilia Topuria comes off of, if Makhachev beats Jack Della Maddalena, nobody in the world is main eventing over Ilia Topuria, in my opinion. Definitely not after Makhachev wins. February, I think end of January might have a Volkanovski card in Australia. That's another pay-per-view possibly. I don't know what February is looking like. You need Khamzat Chimaev versus Imavov. Are they going to stack Chimaev as a co-main to the heavyweight main event? The UFC is in a nightmare with this, but they have outlets to go to. They just need to expedite it. I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe they shove this fight on another card. I don't know. But nonetheless, we'll see what they end up talking about. We'll see what Dana White talks in his matchmaker meetings that he goes to on Tuesday, that he's completely senile in there. Not necessarily really doing anything. Senile is a little bit much, but really haven't felt anything promotion-wise from Dana White. I mean, these things where we're talking about, like, oh, we don't make the fights on the spot. Why? Like, Jailton Almeida should never fight at heavyweight again. That's another thing I forgot to include in this. Jailton Almeida should never fight at heavyweight again. Bring him down to light heavyweight or do not offer him a fight again in the UFC. It's as simple as that. We're no longer offering you heavyweight fights unless it's Walter Walker. And heavyweight's a mess. let's see what they end up doing with it moving forward. I do think that Walter Walker versus Jailton Almeida is the good way to go, with Volkov waiting for the title shot. I think you should shove this in as soon as possible. And you should shove in the Aspinall versus Gane fight as soon as possible. But nonetheless, that would be wrapping up the episode for the first day. We're going to go on and see what happens with this card. We do have a pretty lackluster card in the Apex that we will talk about very, very soon, coming up November 1st. And then we have 2 weeks. We have 2 fight cards to get through. And then the third week is November 15, Madison Square Garden, October. UFC 322, Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena, Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili. We have a lot to go through in the next couple of weeks, so make sure you guys stay tuned. Appreciate you guys all for watching this, and click the subscribe button, like, and comment anything, either any concerns, any comments, anything you have regarding the show, regarding your opinions. I would appreciate if you guys leave them down there, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace out.